Welcome to the Maltepes Report. My name is Matt Maltepes. I'm joined by two special guests, my father, Stelios Maltepes, the Phillygodfather, and Greg Lingo, my very good friend. How are you guys doing?
Thanks for having us. It's awesome.
Thank you for joining, man. So let's get right into it. I have two guests here. We're here drinking coffee of Gods, brought to you by Coffee of Gods. And I just want to talk to you guys about your life, and see what is going on now. I know you guys crossed paths when you guys are young, and then crossed paths once again when you guys were older. So tell me about where you guys met each other, where you guys were born, your whole story.
Cool. Yeah, I guess we probably first met each other when we were kids growing up in Upper Darby. Stelios, Steve, I call him, was a couple of years older, really good basketball player. Went to the same middle school, Beverly Hills Middle School. And I think he was probably a little closer to my brother's age.
Yeah, I hung out with your brother a little bit.
Yeah. A couple of the parties that were interrupted by the
I actually went to they had a house party one time, and must have been maybe in 6th grade.
Yeah, I remember how this one ended. I think my mom was out for like an hour and a half, and all of a sudden there was 100 people in the house.
Yeah, we had some good times over his house over there in Upper Darby. Good time growing up.
Yeah, so then we, I kind of went through Upper Darby School District, graduated from Upper Darby, went on, played a couple sports in college, went to Cornell, and then got into real estate development for the most part. I've been doing that for the last 30 years. About 10 years ago or so, a friend and I started kicking around stories about just all the crazy people that we met when we were growing up, and we started compiling them into stories and then weave that into a movie script we ultimately released a couple of years ago called Last Call. Last Call was, it's just a crude comedy, I would say, starring Jeremy Piven and Bruce Dern's in it. Jamie Kennedy, who's a guy that grew up with us as well, is in it. He did a great job trying to represent one of the meatheads from the neighborhood. But it was a great experience. And when I was releasing that film, that's kind of when, I guess it was through Facebook.
I saw it and I got excited because I knew Greg as a kid, and Upper Darby was such a special place to grow up. It was kind of magical. It was diverse. We played sports all year round, depending on the season. If it was baseball season, we were playing baseball, the AA league. If it was basketball season, if it was football season. And I got so excited that, an old friend of mine actually produced a movie, put it all together, and it was about a magical place where we grew up. And Greg was an amazing athlete as a kid. I know he played baseball and football, and he also played Cornell. But just the cohesiveness of the cliques back then, it was so great to grow up in Upper Darby, and Greg put such a great movie. That's what got me excited.
Yeah, this movie was really based, the neighborhood was a character as much as anything, and it's really these friendships and bonds that are created from childhood that you go your different directions, but anytime now, I could call 60 buddies and say, hey, would you want to hang out? And it's, you kind of have this instant where you go back to where you were friends. Nobody's looking for something out of someone else, very pure friendships. It was funny when we were filming a bar scene in the movie, and the other producers said, we got to pay all these extras to stand around and pretend they're drinking beer. And I said, I got 100 people I can do that. So
that one's not hard.
Yeah, that one wasn't hard. So I sent an email to my buddies, and sure enough, I think 60 or 70 of them showed up that day, and they spent the entire day just. They were pretending they were drinking. I think they were probably drinking as well. They weren't supposed to be, but it was a great day. And that's just kind of a testament to when somebody needs something, just people jump in and help out. And when I was kind of in the stage of marketing the film, Last Call, when Steve kind of reached out to me on Facebook, and we connected, and he put me on one of his podcasts to help market the movie, and then I started kind of getting an understanding of where he had been, literally to hell and back. And, it's kind of interesting that we probably grew up, 15, 20 blocks away from one another and went on these divergent paths, but crossed, which was pretty cool. And lately we've been kind of working on his story. So I'd love your guests I'd love for your audience to hear more about his story and the story we're trying to tell.
Yeah, and I grew up in Upper Darby. I was born in Upper Darby. We moved when I was a teenager down to the city. But 𝐒𝐴LCO has such a unique bond. I was out at the 𝐒𝐷𝐿𝐴 Sportsbook, and I always test it wherever I go. I scream out, 𝐿CO! And there's always somebody, yeah, screaming back. It's amazing. I've done it in Miami. I've done it in Vegas. I've done it out in L.A. And all of a sudden they come up to you, and there's like a weird 𝐿CO bond, even though, your lives have gone in different directions. Like Craig said, it was a magical place to grow up. But going back to what we were talking about, yeah. So I reached out to Greg, and I said, man, I just want to help you any way I can to, help promote your movie. And he was like, awesome. So we did a podcast. I put it out on social media, and it was actually a pretty good film. So then just started talking about life. Greg asked me where my life took me, what directions I went in, and I said, are you ready for this? And he looked at me, and I kind of broke down the whole story, how I started betting on sports when I was a kid. I grew up in a hot dog cart at the age of 8. My dad had me selling hot dogs and sausages in the streets of Philly. And to me, I didn't go to school. I dropped out of school in 9th grade. But to me, the street was the biggest education of my life. And, got involved when I was 18 with a good friend of mine, Rooster, and we started moving games for some really sharp sports bettors out in Vegas. And next thing you know, I'm in an office with a bunch of guys like Jimmy the Sheep Batista, Rooster, a bunch of other names. And we start moving big money back then. And the whole time I was also messing around in the street trying to earn. I was in the market. Back then it was taboo. Now it's fashionable. Now everybody wants to open up a dispensary. Now it's all, it's cool to, be in the weed market. But I was in it when it was taboo. I was in the sports betting market when it was taboo. So I was kind of ahead of my time. And the whole time when I was moving money for those guys and those guys in Vegas, I knew that if I couldn't find more bookmakers to bet with, well, then this job I had an expiration date. We were called movers. So as they kept sending us, the information on these games that had a positive EV edge against the sports book, these guys were basically booking the bookmaker. I started trying to reverse engineer, why are these betting these baseball games? Is it the weather? What factors, is the park factors in baseball? Is it the home run favorability index? Is it the pitching matchups? Is it the mounds? Is it, I just tried to break down everything on why these guys are betting these games. And slowly but surely, I started to reverse engineer moves that they were giving us. And every night, every day, I'd go and I'd try to, come up with my own games. And then the next day that we were getting ready to fire for these guys, if they matched up, every day I was getting close. More of my games were matching up with their games. And I was starting to realize the key factors on why they're betting these games. So we did that for a long time. And then back in I was in that office from 88 till 94.
So how were they getting you the game? Was this the
What
phone
was the
call?
system?
Yeah.
Well, back then we had a big office across the street from the Lamb Tavern.
Okay.
Up there.
In 𝐒𝐿𝐴.
In 𝐒𝐿𝐴. And there was about 40 of us in there. That was the main office. First we had our own office. We had smaller offices at my house in Upper Darby on Kent Road. I had 10 phone lines. It was me, it was the cat, it was Elliot, King was there, Buck, Johnny Corrales was in there. We were all working together, and we were just trying to find as many outs as possible. And we had about 10 phone lines, and we all were sitting next to the phone, and we would get the phone call, and they would say, Eagles -6, open order. So we would just bet it with every bookmaker we had, Eagles -6, and then we would call back when we were done betting it, and we would let them know we got 20, 30, 40, 50,000 on the game. And then from there, it was starting to get a little hot because you got to remember, before a couple hours before the games go off, you see all these nice cars getting pulled up to Darby. You see BMWs, Corvettes, Mercedes. And then after the games start, we would leave and go get something to eat. And then you see the same thing happen again before the night games. So after a while, I was feeling like it was getting hot. So then we moved to Elliot's apartment on City Line Avenue. Moved out of there. We worked out of there for a while. And then we went to the big office, and that big office had about, I don't know, 40, maybe 50 guys in there. I mean, you had Rocco, you had Rooster, you had so many different characters. And there was like a bat phone, and when that phone rang, you knew the games were coming in. And Sheep would pick up the phone and just scream out, move, Cowboys -2. And all race, we had our stat papers, stat sheets. We had 2 phone lines, and we just start calling book. Crazy. And then we would turn in our tickets, and then that's basically how that. It was kind of like a stock room. I mean, we were just trying to beat the market before it moved, the line before the line moved, and get down as much as possible as we could on these games. And then we would turn in the tickets, and that's basically how.
So these guys from Vegas were calling not only you, but probably other offices similar.
Whoever had an outfit.
Yeah.
We were one of the bigger ones.
Yeah.
We really, we beat up bookmakers. Back then I was booking as well. I had a big book. I had close to 1,500 people bet with me. So we were on both sides of the business back then. And what would happen is we would beat bookmakers so bad. And back then, you got to remember, these bookmakers were honorable. Today, these guys don't even pay. Like, everyone thinks they're a bookie. They get a paperhead service online, and they try and get customers. And then if you beat them, they don't pay you. Back then, it was honorable. There were other people, in the shadows that, made sure that everything was run the right way when it comes to the bookmaking side. That's basically how it worked. I mean, we were just firing away, and we would bet into these books, and eventually we would beat them so bad that we would take over their books, sports books, and we would make them a 50-50 partner because they would scream no mas. Like, they just, because back then, you got to remember, people didn't think anyone can beat sportsbook or the bookie. And we were the guys doing it, and we had a big outfit, and we had networks all around the country. I mean, I had accounts in New York, Pennsylvania, Jersey, Delaware, North Carolina. Like, we were going up and down the East Coast back then, trying to find as many bookmakers as possible. And being, my nationality is Greek, I called in all the Greeks, all their cousins, all their grandmas up and down the East Coast. And we were just trying to find as many bookmakers as possible because we knew we had an edge.
Yeah.
And when you have an edge, you try to exploit that edge. You try to monetize as much as possible. We were just trying to get down with as many people as we could back then. That's basically how it worked.
So, real quick, I don't mean to cut you off about the sports betting stuff, but I'd like to talk about the Greek heritage a little bit because obviously Greek is huge in our blood. And I just wanted to talk about like where you come from in Greece and that whole story of maybe your father, whatnot.
Yeah, so my dad and my mom were from 𝐓𝐚𝐥𝐭𝐞𝐩𝐿, Greece. It's a little village outside of Katerini, which is the closest city. It's only about 7 to 10 minutes away. It's right next to Mount Olympus, home of the Greek gods. And my dad was working his ass off. They had tobacco farms back then. But, it was really rough. I mean, the economy over there was horrible. They'd be working their asses off, and they barely had enough to survive, to eat. And my father had 3 kids with my mom, and he met someone at a coffee shop one day, and the guy was Greek, but he was living in America, had a restaurant. Kind of told my father, the streets of America are paved with gold. You got to get your ass out of here if you want to make it. So that really, hit my dad really hard because he was working so hard and he was doing everything he could, and he barely had enough to eat. So somehow they hooked up. My mom was a seamstress. They hooked up with a company over here that manufactured tuxedos, and they ended up paying whatever they had to pay in Greece to legally come over here. And they came over here in 1969. My parents had 3 kids. I was born a year later, and my father basically left his homeland, left all his relatives, had a couple $100 in his pocket, didn't speak no English, and came to America to give his children a better life and, trying to become a success, trying to do better for himself and his children and his grandchildren eventually. And to me, he was the biggest gambler in the world. I mean, we bet money. It's ink on a piece of paper. You can always make more of it. He risked everything with that's kind of, it still amazes me. That's like all of us taking our family and our kids and moving to China. We don't speak no Chinese. $200. I mean, how do you make it? But to him, he was such a strong man that failure wasn't an option. It was, and all he needed was opportunity. And I remember him telling me one time, God rest his soul, my dad, Stelios Maltepes, he said, when I came to America, the guy in Greece lied to me. He told me the streets were paved with gold. He goes, but it was even better. The streets were paved with opportunity. And he goes, that's all he needed. And nobody worked as hard as my father. My father worked fucking 16 hours a day, 18-hour days, whatever it took. And his motto was, if you're working 40 hours a week and it's not enough, work 60. If that's not enough, you work 80. If that's not enough, you work 100. If that's not enough, you don't sleep. But the key words in what he said was, if it's not enough. Now, if you're working 40 hours a week and you're kicking ass and you're making all this money, there's no need to work 60. And some people take it the wrong way, like, oh, I don't want to work 100 hours a week. No. If you're not making it, well, you got to work your fucking ass off a little bit to go make it because you have kids, you got a family. And as we all know, the economy, it's rough to keeping up with inflation and all your bills. It's getting harder and harder each and every year. So he was kind of ahead of his time, the way he thought, the way he processed information. And he only had a 6th grade education, but he was one of the smartest people I've ever met. So we came over here. I was born a year later, 1970. He was a dishwasher. He made $1 an hour, working 90 hours a week. My mom was a seamstress at After Six Tuxedos. She made like $120 a week. And they did everything they could to save their money. I remember waking up and, I wanted a honey bun because the kids I knew had honey buns. And my dad would get a piece of white bread, put some butter on it, slap some honey, and that was my honey bun. I remember him, cutting the milk with water. So he would put half water, half milk to try and, cut costs. I remember I wanted cereal. Every kid had cereal in his freaking house. And my dad would take the day-old bread, break it up, put it in a bowl of milk that he cut with water, put the bread on top, sprinkle some sugar, and that was our cereal. So that was the sacrifices that, just some of them that we had to make to try and make it in this new country where, they didn't speak any English. And then slowly he got promoted from dishwasher to busboy and then cook. And eventually saved up some money and they bought a little hot dog cart. Wanted his own business. He wanted to control his own destiny. And next thing you know, we start making some money with the hot dog part and things start changing. He starts, my dad, if I asked my dad for $5, he'd give me $1. Like with my kids, they ask me for $5, I give them 20. Exactly. Like it's different, But they had to do what they had to do. And that was really the start. That's when my dad first got his taste of the American dream. Now, he worked his ass off for 10 years with these, dishwasher, busboy, cook. And then he had an opportunity to seize the moment, to seize that American dream. And he ran with it. And next thing you know, he had 2 hot dog carts, 3 hot dog carts. We had lunch trucks and things started changing for us. And we started having a small, slice of apple pie, call it. And, he put me in a hot dog cart. I was a kid. I hated it. I wanted to go play sports. I wanted to hang out with my friends. I wanted to go chase chicks around when you're a kid. And I remember I wasn't going to school. I was hanging with the wrong crowd. And I dropped out. And he told me, he goes, you're either going to go to school, go to college, or you're going to die in that hot dog cart. And I didn't like either option.
Option C.
And I wish I would have listened to him because my life would have been a lot easier. But then again, maybe my life wouldn't have worked out the way it did. So you don't know, but I know it would have been a lot less stressful, a lot easier. And that's
It's funny. I made the mistake when we were first talking, when we first kind of reconnected, of saying something about not going the typical college route. You kind of cut some corners in life. And he's like, whoa, dude, hold on a second. There were no corners cut. This was way harder to go this direction. So what was intriguing to me about the story and kind of how we started developing this script for a movie was, Steve touched on it, that all this kind of stuff that he was doing that was illegal is now not only legal, but you can't turn it TV on without having some promotion for how you can gamble easier. And then weed, like you said, is everywhere. Every state almost is approving it, and doctors are saying, yeah, you really got to give this stuff to people to resolve stress and anxiety and inflammation and everything. So all that stuff that people would have said, hey, he's a bad guy. Well, not really. And when you look at it 40 years later, it's all totally legal. And that to me was interesting about the story, that he kind of was going on these routes and paths that at the time were so super dangerous, and kind of navigated it and was able to come out the other end with a family and semblance of a real life.
Well, it's kind of like the prohibition, right? Back then in 1920s, 1930s around, you had alcohol outlawed, and then it became okay, right? So for a time it was outlawed, prohibited, and you had people making money like Kennedy, obviously we all know this. So
he was one of the biggest bootleggers. His kids became president and all that. Yeah, everyone knows the story.
So that's my point. Things change with the times. And I also want to talk about another point you made about if it's not enough to work 40 hours, you got to work 60. If that's not enough, you work 80. Well, when you work more, that equals more opportunity. More opportunity equals more chances to succeed. So I don't know how anyone could take that quote wrong.
I mean, everyone's just trying to survive. Everyone's just trying to do well for their family. And I mean, it's kind of weird. I was walking my German Shepherd, and I got a nice little 8.5 acre spread over there in South Jersey one night, and it's complete darkness with the shepherd. And I look in the shadows, and I see these little eyes, cat. And then I keep walking Zeus, and I look over, and I see a rabbit hiding. And everyone's out here just trying to survive. That's what we're trying to do, and we're trying to do better for our kids and our families. And that's why you want to work hard. If you don't want to work hard, that's your choice. I mean, that's, we're not, if you don't want to, do what you got to do to take care of your family, that's on you. But, where we come from, family is everything, and I just want to, I always say I took all the sins and I made all the mistakes so my children don't have to. And that's why, I had my dad's work ethic, but I was in the street. I was doing stuff that was considered, illegal, wrong. But to me, it never bothered me. I always knew marijuana. I mean, I had read so many different things about that. It never bothered me selling weed. Never bothered me betting on sports. I never tried to hurt no one. I never tried to get over on no one. I never tried to rob nobody. To me, it didn't matter what the product was. It could have been razors, Christmas trees, flowers. I was just trying to earn from it, basically. So that's why I slept good at night. I woke up every morning. I looked in the mirror. I liked the person that I saw. I never tried to do anything that I considered was wrong or immoral.
So I have a question. Tell me about some stories you have from being in those industries. I mean, you're in an industry that's not of the norm, right, in the sports betting one, and definitely not in the norm in the marijuana industry. So I know you have some crazy stories. I know because you've told me some of them. So if you feel free, if you'd like.
What years are we talking with marijuana distribution?
It's funny because a good friend of mine that used to live on our block on Kent Road, I'm not going to mention his name, but he's very successful, and he actually took the legit route a lot sooner than I did, and he's done very well for himself. But he was the first one. He actually, he's the one who said, he gave me a pound of weed. He goes, try and make some money with this. And I was like, I know about weed. You know what I mean? He goes, everybody smokes it. So he goes, chop it up in quarter pounds and, see if you can make a profit. So I said, all right. He goes, if you can't sell, just give it back. I was probably 16, almost 17, or about 16 years old. I was about 16, closer to 17, but I was still 16. So he gave me a quarter pound. I started calling people up, and next thing you know, I'm selling 10 pounds a week, and I'm selling QPs for like $500 a quarter pound. They're costing me, $1,300 a pound. Do the math. You're making $700 a pound. You sell 10 a week. It's $7,000 as a 16-year-old kid back then.
And this is late 80s.
This is, So, I mean, if you adjust it to today, that's probably like making $22,000 a week. It was a lot of money for a kid. And that's when that started. And then when I was 18, that's when the sports betting started. So I had this weird underworld, but I couldn't really mix the two with, like, I had different friends. I had my weed friends and I had the sports betting friends, and I had to keep it separate because the sports betting guys wanted nothing to do with weed. They were more like khaki pants and polo shirts, and they were more, a little bit more corporate, a little bit more business. And then my street guys were street guys, you know, t-shirt, baggy pants, thugs, rap music. So it was a weird dichotomy that I had to keep separate for a number of years.
So what was that like? You have two different worlds and you're trying to balance both, and you're doing two different businesses and you got to keep them apart.
It was tough. And then I had the family as well. You know, later on, it got even more difficult because next thing you know, I get married. I got a couple of kids. So now, you know, fast forward, I was at your mom when I was 22. So fast forward about 4 years after I started betting on sports. Now I got a wife a year later. My Stevie was born, my older son, and then you were born a couple of years after that. It wasn't easy. And I've always had businesses too. So I always had like I had a beer distributor, I had restaurants, I had pizza shops, I had my own iced tea company. Name a business, we owned it growing up. And in the beginning, I always thought I was a businessman that dabbled in the sports betting and the marijuana. And then it went the other way. I started making so much money that then I was a trafficker and a big time sports bettor that just happened to own businesses.
How fast does that move?
It was pretty fast, especially, and you know, you start making, you know, I thought my dad made good money, you know, as a kid, you know, because we started with nothing, and then he's making a couple dimes a week, 2, 3 dimes, 4 dimes a week, and I'm thinking, wow, that's a lot of fun back then. And then you start bringing in some big cash, and then you start dreaming, and then you start like thinking, oh man, I could do some big things. Then, you know, you start thinking, you know, if everything goes right, you can put your kids in a great position, you know. And I was always, you know, working my ass off, not just for me, but for my children. After I had them, they were everything to me, meant the world to me. So it moved kind of quick, and it escalated very quickly, and it was a roller coaster ride. A lot of highs. When the highs were high, they were high, and when the lows were low, man, they were fucking brutal, man. They were low, they hurt, and you know, and then when you have a family, your family, your kids and your wife, you don't realize it while you're in the game. It's kind of like the Matrix, but they're going through that same roller coaster ride with you. And you're thinking, wow, I'm doing all the work. I'm busting my balls. Everyone's out to get me. But you don't realize that family's on that seat next to you. And you realize that when you get a little older, you know, and you got to remember, I was a kid. I mean, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Just look around the kids these days that age. And I'm thinking, what the hell was wrong with me? Like, did I have big balls? Was I that stupid? You know, was it a combination of everything? But I really tried. Every move I made, to me, was calculated. And most of the time it worked out. But that's how I approached everything back then. And it was one hell of a ride, man.
Well, how big did it get? What was the pinnacle? How much did you expand this essentially empire?
It got really big. I don't want to say exact numbers, but, and I was always trying to get better. It didn't matter what I did, whether it was sports betting. I started getting games as a mover. Next thing you know, I want to reverse engineer these games. Next thing you know, I want to be the originator coming out with these moves, anybody getting down. And the same mindset applied to the weed business. You know, first I had someone selling me, and then I wanted to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And next thing you know, I'm on a plane out to Arizona to meet a connect out there. Because the price difference, you know, you're picking up a pound of weed back then in Philly for $1,200, $1,300. They were selling pounds out in Phoenix for $550. So think about the profit margin. All of a sudden, you know, you go from making a couple $100 on each pound wholesale and not retail to making $700-800 a pound as a wholesaler. I mean, I've owned wholesale cash and carries, wholesale beer distributors, and you work from anywhere from like a 6 to 10% margin when you wholesale product. Imagine you're working on a 100% markup as a wholesaler. Like, there's big paper involved. And then I realized, okay, Phoenix is kind of like where the weed goes before it gets shipped out across the country. That's kind of like where they warehoused it. But if you picked it up in Tucson, it was $100 cheaper. And the reason for that was because there's only one road from Tucson to Phoenix. And there's cops out there and they're pulling people over all the time. So then I found out, well, if you go to Yuma, Arizona, it's even cheaper. It's $2.50 a pound. The reason for that is there's a big checkpoint outside of Yuma, so it got more cheaper as went down closer to Mexico. Then when eventually I went to Mexico, you're picking up 2 pounds for $50, you know. But how do you get past that border? That border is $1 trillion border. Like, people don't realize how much money is made on that border regarding regardless of what product is getting crossed over.
Well, let's talk about the border. What was that like?
I don't know if I should talk about the border. It was scary, man. It's really scary. You know, I went down there one time with a couple guys, and we're in Mexico, and we go into this house, and you know, no matter how tough you are, you're not tough in that situation. I don't give a shit like who the hell you think you are. You know, you're in a different environment with serious people. And we go in this house. Next thing you know, we go in the bathroom. Guy lifts up the fucking tub, and there's a tunnel underneath. Leads us through this tunnel into another house. And I end up in a different house. And I look around, and it's bales and bales. Everything you can think of. You know? And that's the first time I really met like the real businessmen behind business. You know, you meet a lot of middlemen along the way, but those guys were really serious. I'm not going to mention any names, but and that was the first time when I felt like a little uneasy. You know, you meet middlemen, everyone's cool, everyone's trying to make money, but that was some serious business. There was tension. And the whole time I'm looking around, I'm trying to process everybody, and I'm trying to do the math in my head. And everyone's looking at you a different way, and you don't know if you're going to make it out of there. You know?
Wow.
And it just, I'm not going to say, you know, it just got deep, man. It just got deep. And that's when it kind of went to a different level. And when we left that day and we finally got back to Arizona, I started, you know, calculating everything. And I wasn't sure. I'm like, damn, am I in over my head here? You know, but and that took off, you know, and it was, you know, and it's just.
At one point, I remember when we were talking about the movie script, Steve tells me that he had, in order to handle this distribution across the country, he had to set up a water bottling business, which was like, so he's trucking, I don't remember how many trucks you said, but there's trucks full of water bottles going from Philly down to Arizona, and then they're coming back, and it looks like it's still the same case of water, but the middle of it has wheat.
Yeah,
Wait.
What happened was, God,
So how many businesses did you have at that moment?
Wow.
How many things were you running?
I had the bar, I had the beer distributor, I had the restaurant, Italian restaurant, I had a construction company, we had a title company, we had a real estate company. I had about 66 people working for me legit at that point, after it blew up. And then we had to figure out how to transport the weed back and forth, because that's the hardest part. And, you know, I tell people all the time, people that sell drugs don't make any money. They all end up in jail. It's the guys that traffic it, the guys that can move it from location A to location B. Those guys get rich. You know, the other guys, they're all just pawns in the game. And that's where the real money's at, when you can move it from AZ to Philadelphia, because you bypass everybody. And we had already established a retail market in Philly and a wholesale market. So now we're getting it for $4.50, $5.50 a pound. It just takes everything to another level. Now you got more weight. Now you got more pressure. Now you got guys on the other side. You know, you ask them for 500 pounds, like, no, take 2,000. And then you get 2,000, oh, take 4,000. And you're just like, what? So how do I get this shit back and forth from Phoenix, you know, or Tucson, or wherever the hell we had our warehouses at the time, different locations, to Philly. And being in the beverage business my whole life with beer distributors and different wholesale cash and carries, light bulb went off over my head, and I'm like, put the fucking bales inside the sprinkler, right? So my buddy actually, it's funny. So I was going to order a couple tractor trailers of spring water, and my buddy's like, wait a second, I know a guy in Canada, Gibraltar Springs. He goes, they manufacture, they can put your label on it. I'm like, fuck it, all right, let's come out with our own spring water, you know? And we started it was called Blue Spring Water. And a lot of people that were in Philly, they'll remember we had umbrellas.
I remember it.
Yeah. We had umbrellas on all the hot dog carts. It was in every fucking mom and pop store. So we started this spring water company, transport the money out to Arizona and the weed back inside the pallets of spring water. I would put like 1 or 2 bales, 40 to 50 pounds in each pallet. You had 22 pallets on the truck. Do the math. A lot of weed coming back. And next thing you know, we had 10 salesmen. We had a bunch of trucks, and we're selling thousands of cases of spring water legitimately, and that took off. So
it seems like everything you do, just try to get better, and you keep on making more efficient, and just keep on trying to. Okay, well, it's like the reverse engineering, right? You reverse engineer the games. Okay, well, it starts matching up. Okay, well, what am I missing? Then you're inputting, you're outputting, you're taking this out, putting this in.
Yeah, that's what you do. A lot of process of elimination, and you're strategizing. But the crazy part about the spring water company is then that was fucking making a ton of. It was weird because I was in a zone where everything I touched for about a decade just turned to. It didn't matter what it was. I could buy real estate in the shittiest neighborhood. Next thing you know, they're building fucking high rises there. It was just crazy. So we start the spring water company, and then that blows up. And next thing you know, my buddy's got a box at the Eagles games, and he was friendly with the guys from the organization. And they were about to build a new stadium and get into the new stadium down there. And next thing you know, I'm in a meeting at the NovaCare Center. It's me. It's my buddy Bob, Ace, Jimmy Rex. And you got the Philadelphia Eagles. Everybody from the Eagles were there. And they, we were putting a deal together to make Blue Spring Water the official water of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Wow.
We were going to get their label on there, the NFL.
Imagine that. Transporting back and forth.
Oh my God. That would have been a fucking nightmare for the NFL. It's bad enough she brought down the NBA. We could have brought down the NFL with that one. You know what I mean? So it was just crazy. And it would have been a great deal because, Jeffrey Lurie, he knew the owner of all the Acme supermarkets, and he was going to get us shelf space in all the supermarkets, all the Wawa. And I really wanted the deal to happen because to me, it was always, growing up in the street, you're doing business with street guys. And to me, you can only go so far. But when your network is Jeffrey Lurie and professional builders in real estate, it didn't matter what it was. Well, now you can, your network can blow the fuck up really quickly. And they're the type of people I want to do business with, right? That's who you want to be around. So thank God that never materialized. It never came to fruition because it would have been really bad for the NFL and the Philadelphia Eagles. But yeah, so we started the spring water company, and that's how we got the money out to Arizona, and that's how we got the weed back. And that went on for a while, and everything was dandy, and you start dreaming. You got big numbers coming in. You got, everything's rocking. You got businesses. And it's like a domino effect. You meet so many different people that you become unstoppable. You got a restaurant. You meet everyone that's in and out of the restaurant. You got a bar. Everyone coming in and out of there. You got a beer distributor. You got a real estate company. You got a construction company. Again,
So I have a question. So you're in meetings with billionaires, right? Jeffrey Lurie, Philadelphia Eagles. Then you're also at the same time you're in the street. Look at that. What was that like? Going from this type of environment to a totally different type of environment.
I was always just trying to be myself and trying to be honorable, trying to be respectful, and I would listen a lot, like in these meetings. I would let them do the talking, and then later I would process what they said. I would try to read people. I would try to break them down, and it was a great experience. I tell people all the time, like you said, I was in meetings with Jeffrey Lurie. I hung out with billionaires, and I've slept next to mass murderers in prison. It's been a crazy freaking ride, and it's been one hell of a learning process. And I approach things, I think, differently than most people. I look at things, I try and find clarity in everything. I try to cut through the bullshit. I try to see things for what they are. And I don't, we're all people, man. We're all the same. We all bleed red. And I give everyone the opportunity, to be real with me. And I try to be the same with them. I try to be real with everyone. And there's not one person out there that can say I owe them money, I did them dirty, or anything like that. I've always tried to be honorable, no matter what the business was, whether it was the street or whether it was professional.
So real quick, before we get to the prison part that you just mentioned, was going south of the border the most intense moment you've had? Or what was the most intense moment through all of that?
Yeah, that was the most intense moment.
That was the most intense?
Is I knew what, you get caught up and you're like, this, that, and you're in the game. And it's kind of like being in love, right? You're in love with a girl. People if she's a bad girl, you don't see it. People on the outside tell you, listen, man, she's not good for you, or this and that, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, nah, I'm with her, and kind of caught up in the matrix of it, right? You don't see it. So when you're in the street and you've been hustling for years, going through the hood in North Philly, the Badlands, go through it every day. Now, these days I go back, I'm like, fuck, this neighborhood's fucked up. But when you're there every day, and I'll give you a perfect example, a story. It was me and your mom. So when I first met her, I used to go pick her up 2nd and Allegheny. And she used to get in the car and I used to lock the doors. And she would get upset. Why are you locking the doors? I'm like, what are you talking about? This dude just got shot it was on the news last night. There's nothing wrong with my neighborhood and this and that. And she lived there for a while, So she was used to it, but she didn't. Fast forward 20 years, we move out. We're living in a nice house in Jersey. And she goes to visit her relatives. She comes out of the house. She gets in the car. She locks the doors. So I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I remember. She goes, what do you mean neighborhood's bad? I go, really? When did it turn bad?
That's a great story.
Yeah. I go, it's always been bad because when you're in it. So that's kind of like what happens when you're involved, in the street in this, crazy business. You don't see things from the. So everyone's telling you, dude, you got to stop. Dude, you got money. And you're like, what? What are you talking about? Like, this is, what I mean? And to go back to what your question was, yeah. But when I went into Mexico, I knew. Like, up until that point, I was in the, but that's when it really, like, fucking hit me. Like, this is starting to get fucking deep. These people are serious people. And everyone thinks they're a gangster in the street, and everyone's a tough guy. But these people are serious people. It's no fucking joke. Like, you can't make a mistake, or your life's on the line. It's not.
So, my yaya, your mother, my grandmother, she had told me once, who has seen the Grim Reaper and has not been scared?
Yeah, it's a great Greek Greek quote. It's true, and that's when it hit me, and I really thought about stopping after I had that meeting because I'm like, man, this is fucking getting. I got kids, I got a wife. Then when those numbers start coming, it's hard, and then you feel like you're obligated. And then you got all these people working for you in the street and legitimately. And it's just, there's so much pressure. And I didn't feel it then, but later on, I realized, there was so much on it was like Atlas carrying the world on his shoulders. It was a lot of weight on my back. A lot of people depended on me. And that's, and I kept going. And did I make the right move? I don't know. If I would have stopped, And then in 2005, it all came crashing down. I get locked up in Arizona. I wasn't even at the warehouse. It was a bullshit-ass case. 7 people got locked up in a warehouse in Arizona. There was $2 million in there. It was 1,248 pounds a week. Cops don't even declare the $2 million that went missing somehow, but, whatever. And then they pulled me in the case. They said I was a ringleader. I was number 1 on the indictment. It was me. It was a couple Mexican guys below me. And then it was a couple guys that I knew. And they had a weak case on me anyway, because I wasn't there. I've never been caught with any marijuana. Never been any phone taps with my voice on it. There's never been any video surveillance. The whole case was bullshit. It was 400 pages of discovery with no evidence against me. Now, they had evidence on the other guys. They got caught red-handed in the warehouse. They had phone taps with them talking to each other. My name was never mentioned. Any of those phone calls. They had video surveillance of all of them working together. I was never in any of it. So I made a calculated decision to fight the case and fight for my freedom. I took it to trial. I ended up losing. And that's...
With all that pressure on your shoulders, all those businesses, everything that's going on, you have so many different businesses. You have your family, you have obviously now you have this case on you. What was that like?
It was tough. I've always tried to be a simple person. Like, even I had a load coming in time. I had 2 tractor trailers coming in, and it was during Super Bowl. I had bet $100,000 on the game, and I'm hanging up kitchen cabinets. And my one buddy who was unloading the truck, he's like, I just got it done unloaded. You want to come down and check it out? I'm like, nah, you're good, man. Don't worry about it. My other guys are calling me up, yo, come watch the game, pop, pop, pop. You know, I would never tell them I had $100,000 on it. I told them I had like 10, 15. I forget what I told my buddies back then. I try to never tell everyone, the extent of how big things were going. They're like, come on, we're watching the game. I'm like, nah, I can't. I've got to hang up these kitchen cabinets in one of my properties. So I always tried to, like I tell everyone now, I identify as poor. You know what I mean? Like, people now want to identify as this and that. Well, I identify as, that's how I grew up. You know what I mean? No, so no matter if I got $1 or $1 billion, that's how I identify myself as just a simple person. So I always try to keep things simple, but yeah, there was a lot of pressure, man. A lot of fucking pressure on me, man, back then. And in 2005, I got it's fucking nuts because I got arrested on April 15th, 2005. That's tax
Next day.
Yeah, and they really taxed my fucking ass. Like, it was, and not just that. You got to remember. Okay, I get locked up. It took all my shit in Arizona. I was responsible for a lot of that work. I paid it. It was a big number, but I always paid things to keep my knee clean. And I didn't have to do that, but I paid it. So you stop working, everything stops. So your whole life stops. Bills keep coming in. Everything else is still moving, but my life stops. So now I'm fighting a case from 2005 till December 6. I'm not making any money. Bills are coming in. Businesses are running, but I'm not being able to manage those businesses, so they're all starting to dive. You got people in there, managers that don't give a fuck. If you don't show your face, if you don't come around, if you don't check the books, if you don't check the inventory, everyone starts stealing.
The presence of authority, when it's like you see a cop down the road, you're driving, right? Well, then you reduce the speed.
Yeah, so now not only did my life stop, now all my businesses are going. The trajectory is fucking ugly and scary. And I already know, like, I'm always looking ahead in anything I do, and I'm like, fuck, this isn't good. But I really believed I could beat the case. And the only thing that bothered me was when we had to select our jury, it was 47 older white senior citizens. It was a Spanish probation officer, and there was this young blonde girl and this Italian union worker from Detroit. So at that point, I said, well, you know what? Out of a jury of 50 people, I got 2 people on my side. That's all I need. So I told my lawyer, Alan Bickert, I said, Bickert, make sure you get that blonde, get that Italian guy from Detroit on this fucking jury. And he turns around to me, don't tell me what to do. I've been doing this 40 years. And he was a highly acclaimed lawyer out there. A little older. I got him at the wrong time. Just had a pacemaker put in like 8 months earlier. So I really picked a great lawyer at the wrong time in his life. But that's a different story. So we're picking our jury. And at the end, he looks at me and goes, you were right. We got the Italian dude, and we got the blonde. And then the rest, I already knew this was against me. So the difference in Arizona in court is, in Pennsylvania, you pick 12 jurors and 1 alternate. In Arizona, you pick 8 jurors and 1 alternate if you're looking at under 25 years. And anyone that's half decent at math will tell you that'll bring up the conviction rate 30%, right? You got to convince less people. If you got 12, it's easier to get 1 who sides with you than if you got 8. But I knew I had 2. I knew those 2 were going to look at this case objectively, and they were going to look at the evidence, which was nothing. The other guys, with a name like Stelios Maltepes, and with the way I looked as a kid, you put me in a suit, I looked like someone out of a fucking stupid gangster movie. I was never a gangster. And I knew in their eyes, I was always guilty. I was guilty before the fucking trial, So, go to trial, we're fighting, we're rumbling. I'm bringing up all kinds of stuff. Like, they had everyone's phone records. They had taken everyone's cell phone records. The people that got caught up in the case with me, they had all pled guilty already. They all took deals. None of them agreed to testify against me. None of them hurt me. But the guys that were in the case all pled guilty already. I was the only one that took it to trial because they had no evidence on me. They had everyone else red-handed. So I pulled up their phone records, and that was in the discovery, and all those guys called each other a couple hundred times. Pull up my phone records. I never called any of those people. So
Not once.
Not one time. And they said I was controlling everyone and I was telling everyone what to do. Well, fuck, man, I got to be Houdini to do that, right? If I never talk to these people. But I do have some magic tricks up my sleeve once in a while. So we rumble it. And day before the trial ended, I had a good friend of mine, 𝐒𝐴𝐴𝐴𝐴𝐴𝐴 Armenian kid, friend of mine. He had testified at trial with me. He went on the stand. I had Harry from Vegas, my buddy, a fellow Greek. He testified for me on the stand. And when that day was over, 𝐒𝐴𝐴𝐴𝐴 came running up to me, and he goes, "You're going to beat the case." I looked at him like, I don't know, man. The cops went up there on the stand and lied about fucking everything. Like, I go, they're better than we are. Because, people think you go and you swear to tell the truth. Everyone's fucking lying at trial. It's whoever wins. So he goes, no, I think you're going to beat it. I said, why? He goes, 7 of the jurors went in one elevator, and that Italian dude and the blonde went in another one. He goes, you got the jury split. And I was like, I fucking knew I had those two people, you know what I mean? So what I didn't know was when they picked the alternate juror, and they listen in, and you can say I'm crazy, but they listen in into that jury room in Arizona. And I know why they do it, because it's a border state, and I don't blame them for doing it, because so many things go over that border, and they can bring in bombs and they can bring all kinds of shit. So it's kind of like a police state. Like, people don't realize what Arizona is. And if it's done to keep our country safe, and I'm a byproduct of suffering from it, well, fuck it. It is what it is. But they cheat. And they listen in. And what they did to me was, we had the jury split. But the day came when they had to pick the alternate juror. There's a 1 in 9 chance they pick the Italian guy from Detroit. What's that, 12%? 88% chance they don't pick him. Who do they pick for the alternate juror? They pick the Italian guy from Detroit. So what that did was, now you got a young blonde girl who thinks I'm innocent. That the rest of the jury, who's got me guilty before it started, they don't want to sit there and waste their lives. And they broke her. And they came back with a verdict the next day. And I had to go back to trial, back to the courtroom, sorry. And it's funny because I was trying to find a church, because Bickert had called me up. He goes, oh, the jury came back. You got to come back. So I'm trying to hit churches before I go back. I go to one church, it's fucking closed. I go to another one's closed. I go, oh, I'm in trouble.
Oh, no.
I went to like 7, 8 churches. They were all fucking closed. So I get back to the courtroom, and I see all the fucking cops. I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm done. What the fuck happened? I had 2 jurors. And I already knew, like, you see predictive indicators, whether it's in any kind of, but, in life, I saw it. And get to the front, I sit down with Bickert, and the jury would always come out of the right side door. Just look at him, right in their eyes, to let them know, like, I'm not hiding nothing. And here comes the jurors, and then the blonde walks out last, and they're kind of helping her walk, and she's crying, and she's teared up, and she's like, sorry. She's not saying it, but she's like saying it, like,
Mouthing it.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm fucked. And then they all go sit down. And then the judge comes in, rise, blah, 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 bullshit. How do you find a defendant? And everyone's got to stand up and say guilty, 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 guilty. She didn't want to stand up. Pick her up, help her up.
Picked her up.
They helped her up from the chair. And she's crying. And I'm like, what the fuck is she going to say? I know I'm fucked, but she's not saying it. I'm like, mate.
Maybe I got a shot.
And she says guilty. And that's when my whole life just fucking stopped.
Room froze.
Everything froze. Getting goosebumps. It's like surreal. It's like now I'm going into uncharted territories, right? I'm fucking Arizona. Where the fucking prison they're going to send me out? Who knows what's going to fucking happen to my wife, my kids. I was looking at some serious time. every day in prison is like a month. Every month is like a year. Every second is like an hour. So that's when everything just fucking stopped.
When you did go to prison, so how was that sentenced?
What happened next?
Yeah, what happened next? Like in terms of sentencing, you go to jail. What jail did you go to?
Well, first they took us. They take you in the basement. They process you, show all the fucking pictures, all that bullshit, the fingerprint bullshit. They already have my fingerprint. Then they send you they sent me to Estrella jail, waiting to get sentenced. So the worst part of that is the uncertainty. You don't know how many years you got to do. I was looking at up to 12 and a half years for each count. So
How many counts?
There's 2 counts. So you're looking at it like a quarter, right? So that's the part. If you tell me, okay, Steve, you got to do 7 years. All right, you accept it and you start doing your fucking time. But first they send you to Estrella jail and you're waiting to get sentenced. And every day you just, start thinking about shit. So I think sentencing came in February, if I'm not mistaken. So from December 7th till like February, early February, December, January, almost 2.5 months. Every day you're waking up. You don't know if you got to do 25 years, if you're going to get 5 years. And that was fucking stressful. And I called my mom while I was in Estrella jail. And my brother just happened to be there, Mike. So she goes, your brother wants to talk to you. So he gets on the phone and he's like, how you making out? And I go, this fucking blows over here. It's fucking so hot. You got Joe or Pryor's prisons, jails, not prisons. Everyone knows about it. So I'm talking to my older brother, Mike, and he's like, what are you going to do? I go, what the fuck are you going to do? I'm fucking in jail. I'm going to prison. He goes, no, you're going to appeal. I go, appeal? They just fucking rocked me. It took millions of dollars. I don't know how long I got to do. I go, I can't win a fucking trial with no evidence. They fucking convicted me on 0 evidence. The cops just lying testimony. How am I going to win an appeal? He goes, you're the luckiest guy I know. I go, Mike, this ain't sports. And, I never told my brother, like I always kept everything we did, the sports betting, away from my, family. Like they knew a little bit, but they never knew that I was, handicapping games, moving money. And I was, and
they had an idea.
Yeah. They didn't know how much research I went into making my bets. Every bet was calculated, And he's like, you're lucky, this and that. And we go to the casino and you win playing blackjacks. We go to sport, you win betting games. And he didn't know that we were counting cards as kids. We got kicked out of Atlantic City a couple times in different sports books. And I said, Mike, this guy, he goes, you're the luckiest guy I know. He goes, file the appeal. I'm like, Mike, the lawyer took $500,000. I lost millions of fucking dollars. I go, I'm just going to do my thing. He goes, you're the luckiest guy I know. File the fucking appeal. So I said, let me think about it. And I thought about it. Then next day I woke up. I said, well, I got to get the right lawyer. And Bicker couldn't do my appeal. We had to get a different lawyer. So we found this guy, Thomas Hoytle. And he saved my life. Guy, I know he just got... ended up getting Alzheimer's a couple of years ago, and I felt bad for him. But the guy was, I owe the rest of my life to this guy because I call my brother up. I go, all right, we're going to use Thomas Hoytle. I said, nah. So, all right, I'll call him up. I'll get him the money. So Thomas Hoytle, get him the money. He starts the appeal process, right? And if it wasn't for him, I don't know where my life would have went. And I tell people all the time, people in my type of business, when they get locked up, 99.9% of them lose their wife. They get out of prison, their kids hate them. Come out, they're dead broke. Nobody makes it. Just me and my good friend, Billy Motto, probably the only 2 guys I ever made. that were put in that type of situation. And Thomas Hoytel, I mean, guy saved me. We filed the appeal. So I'm in Australia jail for a couple months. Then they send me to Yuma, Arizona, fucking hottest place in the world.
Yuma?
Yeah, Yuma, Arizona. It was 122 degrees with no fucking air conditioning. And I'm in there. First they sent me to Dakota. Then they sent me to Cheyenne. So I'm in Cheyenne for like a year. And everyone's doing life, double life, triple life. It's a fucking mess, right? So, but before they sent me to prison, we go to sentencing. And I didn't know how much time I was going to do. And Alan Bickert, the lawyer that I had, decided to go on vacation to Australia and not come to my fucking sentencing. So I get the news like a week before. And I'm like, what the fuck you mean not come to my sentencing? I just paid you all that fucking money. So I had gotten in trouble back in 97, so I knew how sentencings go. So I already had a bunch of character letters from people. I had people flying out to my sentencing to testify on my behalf on my character. So I knew how the game worked and how that really influences, your sentencing. So then I called up Stephen Kunkel, who I had paid to represent one of the guys in the case. I said, Kunkel, I need you to show up. Bickert's not fucking showing up. He fucked me. He goes, all right, no problem. So thank God he came. So now I got a lawyer. And Kunkel's one of the best lawyers out in Arizona. This is at my sentencing. So he comes out, read off 100 character letters. You're out there. You're 8 years old. Well, first, let me ask you, how difficult was it for you to step up on that podium and talk to the judge about me?
Well, I remember Kunkel, and Kunkel had told us we should probably, or he told my mother at least, you should probably get one of the kids to go up. And I think I believe it was supposed to be my older brother, but somehow that didn't happen. And then I was there and I wrote something the night before. I got a pen and little paper the hotel has, and I'm writing down all this stuff. And it comes where we're in the courtroom, whatever the case was, and I go up there and I didn't have to say anything out of the norm. I just said what was true in my heart. I was like, my dad's a good guy. I love my dad. Please don't take my dad away. Essentially, like, he doesn't belong. Prison as a kid. You're a kid. Well, what's prison for? It's for bad guys. For the guys you see on the news that are killing people, all this, right. I was like, my dad doesn't belong there. I know this guy every day. I've seen him. So I went up and I said, please don't take my dad away.
And that's when it hit me. You were up there. Like, when they said I was guilty at trial, I had no emotion. Going through the whole thing, I know. When you went up there, that's the first time I had tears. Because my 8-year-old son's fighting for my life. And that was a moment for me. And that really impacted, I think, that was the judge, Gottsfield, his decision-making on my sentencing and how many years I'm going to go. And he ended up being a little more lenient. Then that fucking prick DA, James Simpson, he stands up and starts screaming, Your Honor, we didn't have Steve's prior conviction, 1997, for marijuana when we went to trial. And he'd be looking at even more time if we had it. And we couldn't bring it up at trial, but now we can bring it up at sentencing. And I want Maltepes to do at least 10 years in prison. So I'm like, fuck. This fucking
can't catch a break.
Right? I'm like, this motherfucker. And I'm thinking to myself, these guys are DAs, district attorneys. They're in court every day. They know how to read people. They know who the good people are, who the bad people are. They know who the killers are and the gangsters. I'm none of those things. Family man, trying to earn money. And it was, it was a lot of paper, but I wasn't hurting people. Like, and for him to do that, it really fucking turned me off. I'm like, this fucking asshole. Like, got my kids here. You got your wife. You got friends. I got 100 character letters from people, from cops, from doctors, from lawyers, from every aspect of life. Like, professionals that knew me as a person, and they all wrote great things about me. Now I got this fucking prick who's trying to bump up his numbers and, you know what I mean, to enhance his own career, trying to make me spend the next 10 years of my life in prison. So in the end, the judge basically said, I was going to give you 3.5 years in prison. That was the least amount of time he could have gave. He goes, I could have gave you 25 years in prison, but I'm going to run your 2 counts concurrent, and you're going to spend the next 5 years in prison. And that's basically the sentence I ended up getting. So I was kind of lucky. If James Simpson doesn't stand up, probably gives me the 3.5 instead of the 5. And that's when, they take you, send you, downstairs, this and that. But I accepted. At that point, I'm like, all right, cool. 5 years, 12 months in a year, 60 months. You get out a little earlier. Well, I could do that shit. Fuck that. But then when they sent me to Yuma, I'm like, what the fuck? And what I realized after talking to people later and different lawyers is when you go to trial and you lose, they send you the shittiest prison on purpose. They want everyone just pleading. They don't want no one holding up the system. They don't want anyone costing the system money. They want everyone just to plead guilty.
Just send them.
But when you fight it, people they got a fucking hard on for you.
Yeah.
So they sent me the worst prison they could send me. So I'm in Yuma, Arizona.
What was that like?
23-hour lockdown, controlled movement, handcuffed and shackled. Mass murderers. Every other person you're talking to is in there for life, double life. And when you first walk in, my hair was long because I hadn't cut it in jail. I didn't shave because I was worried about getting MRSA. People were getting MRSA and they were getting staph infections. And I'm like, I'm not using all that fucking shit. So I come in, my hair's all crazy. I look like Charles Manson and shit. So when you first walk into Yuma, to the prisons, well, not Dakota, but you walk in, and then get on the run. Well, they got like different factions. You got the Mexicans from Mexico, they're the Paisas. You got the Mexican Americans, the Chicanos. You got the Aryan Brotherhood, they're the white guys. They're the guys that run prisons. Then you got the kinfolk that are African Americans. And obviously they knew I wasn't African American, so I had none of their representatives approach me. The Paisas actually came up to me first, and they're like, Paisa, Paisa. And they're talking in Spanish, and I'm like, nah, man, I don't know what you're talking about. So then the Mexican Americans come up to me, and they're like, yeah, you got to run with somebody, and this and that, and we're here to protect you, and this and that. And I go, I'm not fucking Mexican. I'm Greek. So then the Europeans, if you're European, you're supposed to run with Aryan Brotherhood. So now I see this guy comes up to me, bald, fucking tattoos everywhere, over fucking his head everywhere. And, I used to see these guys on TV, and I thought they were actors. These guys are fucking real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is real now. This isn't a fucking show where you see, skinheads or Aaron Brothers.
It's not a movie.
This is real. So he pulls me to the side, real polite. Yeah, you're Greek, because you're with us. I didn't say nothing. And there was not like, what the fuck are you going to say? Right?
How you can argue with that?
Yeah, so I started doing my time. And it was hard, man. Like in the beginning, when you don't know how to do time, it fucks your head up. You're stressing, and there's so much tension. And you realize you're in a fucking
Supermax.
A max prison with fucking mass murderers. So then what I do best. I broke down how to do time in my head. So I got a piece of paper. I would make 24 boxes every day. Each box was an hour. 8 hours for sleeping, an hour for artwork, 3-4 hours for working out, an hour for poetry, an hour for and every day I would just boom, 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 boom.
With structure in your life.
Yeah. Or else you fucking go crazy. Like I needed to break it down. How am I going to beat this? Just like I beat the market, sports betting market. Just like I beat the weed market. I got to beat fucking mentally how to do time with fucking mass murderers. So And then you got to remember the Aryan brothers run the prisons out there. So they got access to everyone's paperwork. They know everything about you because they work in the offices. So next thing you know, this tall, skinny, built guy comes up to me. My name is Stretch. I'm like, nice to meet you, Stretch. So I'm thinking they're going to try and extort me. I'm thinking right away they read my case. They're going to try and get me, right?
Try to get you for money.
Yeah, you know, that's what they do, like in a lot of prisons. Not Stretch. Stretch goes to me, listen, we got your paperwork. Are you from the East Coast? Pretty impressive what you were doing. He goes, we got commissary. We run the commissary. So I know you got money. I'm not trying to extort you. As soon as he said that, I was like, cool. He goes, we'll give you double the commissary. I need you to send money to the street for me. So I said, all right, no problem. So they would give me $200 in commissary whenever or whatever, as much commissary as I wanted. And I would have to send half of that through a money order on the street to their guys all around the country. Bubba fuck Indiana, fucking North, where the fuck they were at. So I start working with them. Next thing you know, they're watching me work out. I start carbing out. I started eating no carbs in prison. I was the only guy. Everyone else is eating fucking sticky buns, Texas big fucking honey buns. They're eating fucking beans. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get in fucking shape. So I start carbing out. I start ripping up. I went in like 205. By the time I came out, I was like $155. I was fucking shredded. Doing my workout. I got these bottles of water. I'm shadow boxing. Boom, 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 boom. So they had seen me shadow boxing, the Aryan brothers, and they're really quiet. And one thing about them is they believe what they believe, right? And there's a lot of people these days that say stupid shit. And the word racist is being thrown around. And it's really a slap in the face to all the people that suffer from racism over years. Because people just might say something stupid, and the next thing you know, they're going after them. Those people aren't racist. Aryan brothers, they're real racist. And you will never hear them say the N-word. You will never hear them say, anything. Like, they're quiet, and they're always plotting and contemplating. And they believe what they believe. And, and I just want to bring that up because these days they're trying to weaponize that word against good people. And a lot of good people out here that might say something stupid. And to me, it's fucked up. Anyway, but going back, so they had saw me shadow boxing. And they come up to me, they said, Stretch came up to me because I want you to teach our torpedoes how to box. I didn't know what a fucking torpedo was. I go, what the fuck's a torpedo? He's like, they're the guys we send in to fuck people up. So every day, 2 guys would come with, like they were cleaners, water bucket, fucking sponge. So we'd come into my run, go in the porter closet. They'd wrap their hands, I'd get the flip-flops, and I'd start doing pad work with them. So now I'm training mass murderers how to box. And that was the deals you make. I made a deal with the devil, right? So I don't agree with these people. I don't agree with their lifestyle. I don't believe in what they believe in. And
about survival.
Yeah, you got to make deals, right? So, and I never told none of them, that I was married to a Puerto Rican girl. Who knows? They might have killed me just for that. Because now you're associating with them. And
it goes against their ideology.
It goes against their ideology. They can believe whatever the fuck they want to believe in. I want to believe what I believe in. That was a secret while I was in prison that I didn't want to let out. I told everyone she was Italian. They asked me, I was right. I said, she's Italian. Because they might have sent their torpedo. The same guys I trained to fight might have came in and just fucking shanked the shit out of me. So they never found out. And maybe they did and they didn't care. I don't know. You know what I mean? But that was something I didn't want out there. So you're trying to navigate. And I did with everything else. Like I said, I just try to break it all down. I try to read people. The scariest thing for me in there was when I talked to people that were doing life and double life, and you look into their eyes and they were soulless. Like,
the soul was gone. The life, the hope.
You just looked at it and you saw it was darkness. Didn't matter if the guy had blue eyes, brown eyes, green eyes. You looked into his eyes. If he's a life or double, like.
Well, they say that about people that go to war. They say the eyes tell the story.
Always tell. The eyes never lie, like Scarface said. The eyes never lie, Chico. That was, so I did what I did best. I broke down how to do time. I try to read people. The other problem I had, which wasn't a problem for me, but I realized it was a problem for the lifers, was I used to get like mail every day. Like 10, 15 pieces of people were always writing me. And all my friends and all my relatives, all my loved ones, man, and that kept me going. But I started realizing it built animosity for the lifers that weren't getting an email. And they were starting to like look at me like that fucking prick's getting all, who the fuck's he? You know what I mean? So
hatred, like jealousy.
Yeah, like I'm like, fuck. So I picked up on that a few months in. And I'm like, this could be a fucking problem. So I start trying to figure out a solution. Oh, I'm getting all this fucking commissary. I start feeding people. You know what I mean?
Sweeten them up.
I gotta be a diplomat. You want to be mad at me for getting fucking all this mail and all this, but you know what? Here's some food and don't be mad at me no more. And so I solved that problem. And I saw the difference in how they looked at me. And next thing you know, when they're around me, they're smiling, they're happy to see me. So I had to learn how to navigate and avoid pitfalls that most people, like if you're not reading people, you would have never picked up on that. You're happy to get mail. Fucking you're reading it. Like it takes you out of the prison. Remember,
for a moment.
Yeah, it's like a time machine. It takes you out of there. But then you look up and all these fucking people are looking at you like they fucking want to kill you. And they're all killers.
You're in hell, but that gives you a little bit of heaven.
Yeah. But it also built, like I said, animosity with some, not all of them. And, you got to be able to read people in life, man. And if you can do that, that'll take you. You don't have to be the smart. I'm the smartest guy in the world. Went to fucking 9th grade. But there's other things, that I'm good at. I look for patterns, indicators. I try and read people, and that's basically how how I've conducted my business. All different kinds of things, but yeah, prison was kind of tough. Yuma was really tough. And then one day, it was 122. And they call yard. So it was so hot you couldn't grab the pull-up bar. And I broke every record in pull-ups in prison. I was doing 50-pack straight, 10 a day. I was doing up and overs. I was doing like 40 up and overs. No one could fuck with me because I had gotten down to like 150 and I was just so fucking strong for that weight. And they call yard. And I got the socks on my arms to grab the pull-up bar. And I walk out there, and it's me and like 4 of the lunatics on the yard. It was just too hot for everyone else that day. Look around. You could see them all like on the runs just watching. I said, all right, I'm going to take advantage of this moment. So I started doing my pull-ups. I started doing fucking sprints, and I'm fucking dying on the inside, but I'm acting like it's nothing, right? So I started screaming, is this all you fucking got? It's not hot enough. I want it fucking hotter. And all the fucking lunatics that talk to themselves, they're like, I want it fucking hotter. So I knew everybody was watching. So I got to make all these mass murderers and killers think I'm fucking a little crazy too. It's kind of like a bluff, but maybe I was going a little crazy. But I just thought, this ain't fucking, I want it fucking hot and I'm fucking and I'm thinking I'm going to faint by the time I'm done my workout. And then we go inside and everyone's just looking at me a little differently, So, you play little games like that. You got to keep people guessing because if they think you're soft, they're going to try and take advantage of you.
Of course.
And Yuma was rough. And then, thank God they transferred me to Kingman. Kingman was an open yard. You can go out all day long. You fucking get on the phone all day long. Fucking everyone's downtiming, short timing. Nobody wants to get in an argument. No one gets to fight. Everyone just wants to get the fuck out of there, And that was a lot easider. I met some good people in Kingman that I still talk to today. The guys in Yuma, I met 2 nice guys in Yuma. And I'll tell this story about 𝐒𝐥𝐿𝐴 later, but there's no way to stay in contact with this. These guys are all doing. But before I left Yuma, Dad called me for legal mail. And this is when I first got locked up, a couple months in. You had to go to the front for the legal mail. So they handcuff me, shackle me, take me to the front. CO hands me the legal mail, and I touch it, and I get goosebumps. And I see it from the lawyer, Thomas Hoytel. What is this? I get back, I open it up. Your appeal has been filed. I'm like, what the fuck? I rip it up. Like, I thought I had no shot with my fucking appeal. So fast forward now, I'm in Kingman. I'm there for, I think they sent me there in February the following year. This had to be August of 2008. Female CO comes up, gives me my mail. Right on top is legal mail. I touch it. I get goosebumps. I see Thomas. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, life's weird like that. Like, there's certain things you can't explain in life that, So, and I had gotten legal mail the whole time there before, and I never got goosebumps when I touched the fucking envelope. It's just fucking weird. So this envelope gives me goosebumps again. So I'm like, it's probably nothing like the fucking, I open it up. It says, your case has been reversed and remanded back to trial. I don't know what the fuck that means. So we had like a prison lawyer, Michael Vanchek. His nickname was Breeze. One of the coolest dudes I ever met. Older guy, served 2 times in Vietnam. He looked like the guy from Easy Rider, the long beard, the cool shades, the long hair, white, gray hair, and ponytail. He used to run the 𝐒𝐡𝐨𝐰 chapter in Phoenix, and I had talked to him before, and he told me he was wrongfully convicted of murder. They had given him murder plus 15 years. So he was never coming out. So, but he was fighting his case on appeal. Kept talked different times, and I told him I had an appeal. And bullshit. So now I get the paperwork that says reverse and remand. I got no clue what the fuck that means. I go up to Breeze. I go, Breeze, what the fuck is this? Reads it. His eyes lit up, and I can see the genuine happiness in him. Smile. It was the first time I seen the dude smile. And he goes, son, you're getting out of here. He goes, they overturned your conviction. I go, what? And he goes, yeah, it's reversed and remanded back to trial. He goes, call your lawyer up. Fucking ran to that phone. Calling, he's not picking up. Calling, finally gets on the phone. Got the letter, huh? I go, yeah, Tom. He goes, yeah, you're coming home. He goes, it's going to take about a month and a half to process everything. I'm going to have to post bail again, and then they're going to let you out, and then it's reversed and remanded back to trial. I go, all right, fuck it, I'm getting out. You know what I mean? So I go back, I'm talking to Bree, and he was like so happy. Like, I'll never forget, fucking dude was awesome. And fast forward October, right before my birthday. My birthday's on the 12th. Fast forward in October. While I was in prison, I had placed a future on the Phillies at 22-1 to win the World Series that year for 2 dimes.
What year are we? What year was this?
2008.
2008.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so it's fucking weird how when things are good, they're good. And when they're bad, they're bad. And when they're fucking great, they're fucking great. So the van comes. This is the fucked up part too. The van comes to pick me up, to take me out to Kingman. Get your shit, Maltepes. Boom, 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 boom. Get in the van. We're driving for hours. We end up at Buckeye Prison. And they had to stop there for a little. So we're at Buckeye. They put us in cages outside. And it was so fucking hot. And we're fucking sweating. But I'm going home. I'm getting out. You know what I mean? Well, while we're at Buckeye Prison, the place goes on lockdown. Guards fucked up. The prison inmates fucked up a guard, so I don't know if the guy died, whatever the fuck happened. We're in a cage for like a day and a half. No one's even come to see us. No food, no water, no fucking nothing. They forgot about us. So I'm like, what the fuck? I'm supposed to be going home. I'm going to die in this fucking cage? Then out of nowhere, fucking lady CO comes out. She had fucking crackers, some water. And I guess she gave it to us and drinking the water. I take a bite of that cracker. And it was the best thing I ever ate in my fucking life. Like to this day, I've never eaten nothing that tastes as good as that fucking cracker. Start moving, but it might have been out there for maybe 2 days. I don't know, I forget how long we were. Day and a half, definitely. And that was the best food I ever ate in my life. Fucking, and to this day, I tell everyone, I've been to the fanciest restaurants in the fucking world. You name them, I've been there. We've been there. And nothing to this day matches the way that cracker tasted in my mouth. And then he finally came, got us, sent me up to Phoenix. I got processed. And when I went to trial, I had a nice $1,200 suit on. So I'm expecting my clothes back. Well, somebody stole the fucking suit. So they give me this paper suit with a zipper. It's me. And I get the fuck out and I walk outside and it was kind of surreal. Like when doors opened up and I'm looking outside, like everything went into slow motion for me. And I'm walking out and I'll never forget, there was a fucking tree with a flower bud, a white flower in the fucking desert. I don't remember ever seeing any flower. And I just grabbed that fucking, and smelled it. And then it's like, poof, everything was back. It wasn't slow motion. It was fucking weird. So then I'm out. Go see my lawyer a couple days later. He tells me, listen, first and remanded back to trial. He goes, they give you a deal. Plead guilty to the F2 felony again. You get time served, and you owe them $1.5 million. Because what happened was when you get arrested, they fine you. And 1,200 pounds of weed out in Arizona is worth about $500,000, so it's 3 times the amount of what the weed's worth in Arizona, not over here. So they had hit me with $1.5 million. So I tell Hoyle, fuck him. We're going to fucking go to trial again. This time we're going to beat him. Looked at me like I was crazy. I go, Tom, they lied about everything. This time I'm bringing fucking 30 witnesses. And we're going to lie even better than they did. He goes, are you fucking crazy? Like he's telling me, like, no. He's not going to conjure perjury. He's not going to, shut your fucking mouth. Go talk to your family. So I go back. I go, Tom, I ain't taking that fucking deal. Tell him we're going to fucking trial. Just tell me what you need and how much money you need. So then he comes back a couple weeks later and he goes, they offered to take it from an F2 felony to an F5, which is basically a misdemeanor. Time served, $1.5 million fine. They wanted the money. They wanted me to give him He just took 2 years of my life away. They stole $2 million that was never disclosed in the case. They rocked me. I'm like, no, fuck them. He goes, are you crazy? He goes, I don't give a fuck. So then we're getting ready to go to trial again. And I'd given him money. Then he goes, if we go to trial, I need another $100,000. I go, whatever you need, Tom, I don't give a fuck. So then like 3 days before we go to trial, he comes back to me. And I was always like, fuck them. Like, and he goes, listen, they offered to give you a misdemeanor, time served, and he took the $1.5 million fine off. You got no parole to walk off, nothing. He goes, you better take this. And he hangs up on me. He didn't even let me talk. He didn't let you talk. So I go back, I talk over my family. And they're like, what are you doing? You're out. Take the fucking deal and just start over. Like, whatever you got to do. And I'm from Philly. Like, I've been boxed since I was a kid. I got that stupid fighter's mentality that sometimes helps you. But in a case like this, it would have hurt me if I fucking listened to my, you know what I mean? And I call him back. I go, all right, fuck it, we'll take the deal. So it saved me $100,000 from giving Tom a trial again. I had no paperwork to walk off, no parole. I didn't give him any money. I was off scot-free. And I was back in Philly.
So when you came back out, were you essentially back to zero?
What do you mean?
You had to restart all these businesses? They all went downhill. Tell us about all that.
The businesses all closed up, right? A bunch of people lost their jobs while I was locked up. It's crazy how you take one person out of the equation and everything else falls apart. And maybe it was my fault because I structured it that way. If I had structured it differently, I don't know. And when I got out, the Phillies are in the World Series. So I got two dimes on that.
Yeah.
I was cash poor, but I still had some properties in the city. But that's when the market crashed. So you can't sell anything. So now you got properties with real estate taxes and bills. You got your cash poor. How the fuck do you pay for groceries? How the fuck do you pay for electric? How do you pay? You start stressing. And Phillies getting the World Series. Ended up winning the World Series. So I had a couple bucks. It was baby paper, but that, what the fuck, 40 dimes you got, not going to go take it. So I'm driving around Fishtown, I remember. And I'm like, I kind of remember I owned some lots in Fishtown.
You forgot.
Yeah. I was always buying shit. I had deeds everywhere. You know me. I'm not the fucking most, I don't have like a filing cabinet. My shit's like, so this was probably middle of 2009. So now, cash poor. I still got, properties, but you can't sell them, So a little fucked up. Around the end of 2009, I see some building taking place in Fishtown, like new construction. 2010. So I'm struggling to make ends meet. Market's into shit, the real estate market. I got some rents coming in. It's keeping me afloat. You know what I mean? But it's whatever's coming in is going back out. Living expenses, bills. So I'm stagnant, right? I can't start. I'm here. I'm
trying to catapult.
Yeah, and I'm, I was used to my life always being going up. So fucking stagnant. And it's bothering me. I'm trying to fucking figure out how the fuck can I get out of this fucking, And then I see slowly Fishtown starting to build it up. And I always liked Fishtown. And the reason why, the first time I bought lots of Fishtown was by accident because I went to the sheriff's sale and I was going up against Bladstein on a property in Fairmount. And the guy always outbid, So 6 lots came up for sale. And I just wanted to buy something. I bought 6 lots for like $2,000 a piece. 2,500, whatever the fuck it was, just to own them. And it was one of the best things I ever did in my life, right? So now I'm driving by Fishtown, and I'm like, I know I got fucking lots. So I go back home, I go, damn, I got 6 fucking lots here. I got 2 lots on Boston Street. I got another 2 on York. I had 11 lots. So then basically, I realized I had lots in there, and neighbors started to pop up. So I put one up for sale, sold it for a ton of money, and that kind of helped me get back on my feet. It gave me capital that I needed to start growing.
So once you started growing, you came, and now you're at the point where you're producing a film. We're all producing a film together. How do you put that into a story? How do you put that all together?
That's where Greg comes in. He's the mastermind.
Well, so Steve tells a good story.
You did do The Last Call, which was, you had Jeremy Piven, right? Emmy Award winner. You had Oscar nominee Bruce Dern. You wrote it from top to bottom. You worked it. And how do you manage to put all of that in a story?
The story is, the story tells itself. It's an incredible story, and it's back to the family roots thing of this American dream that, you see a mayor in D.C. that gets busted and kicked out for really smoking crack, and people vote him back in because we all have faults, and he picked a circuitous route to get to where he is, but he had he had this vision, and he was doing whatever he was doing better than whoever he was up against. And I think that's a story that really resonates with people, that they can say, it wouldn't have been my choice, but damn, this guy's pretty good at what he did. And what's most intriguing to me is when we started talking about the sports betting and kind of the angles that he looks at. I'm a Philly sports fan. I don't bet because I would just bet the Phillies and the Eagles and the Flyers and the Sixers, but that's because I would bet with my heart. He didn't care about that at all. He's looking at it in an analytical way that I think viewers of this movie are going to be really intrigued to see kind of what he and you through your analysis are able to, how you're successful in what otherwise to most kind of run-of-the-mill people it seems pretty confusing. How do they set the lines? I scratch my head at how are they in the middle of the game changing lines, and it's pretty awesome. I get the mathematics behind it, but I love seeing how you guys are kind of taking that apart. So the story could be told in a heavy way, but I think the character is very likable here, and somebody that people are cheering for, and that's kind of where I got behind it and got interested in it. And we've, our path from now to the big screen is. Obviously, we're going to be raising money. We have about $5 million pledged so far for the film. Steve's in the process of writing an autobiography that's going to be released in roughly the first quarter of next year, and I think that kind of brings his story out to the world a little bit. And with that, we're confident that we're going to gain some momentum and kind of keep the ball rolling, taking the script, and modifying it, and working it into ultimately a screenplay. And the businesses Steve had that were successful, he had people working with him that, he provided a vision, but then they did the work. And, any credit to releasing Last Call was through, we had a great director, we had great other producers, and the cast was exceptional. So, no accolades to me. It was really a production, literally. And we're looking to film locally again. I think the story is a Philly-based story, Delaware County-based, kind of where it gets its roots. We'd like to film and shoot in and around the tri-state area here when we get off and running. So just really excited to be a part of it.
So when it comes to the film, like we've all talked about it, we've worked on it and whatnot. I know we've talked to multiple different directors, and we had a lot of directors in mind about, give or take 5. And I know you narrowed it down slightly a little bit. So talk about that if you'd like to talk about it, any of you.
I think, bringing this story to the people is going to require the best storytellers in the business. And, if Last Call doesn't have Jeremy Piven and Bruce Dern and Jamie Kennedy and Sherry O'Terry and some others, Zach McGowan was amazing, Taryn Manning coming after her prison role of Orange is the New Black, they made that story, and they took a script and then they just made it better through their performance. And we're going to look to do the same thing here. We have the nuts and bolts of a really cool story, but there's a lot of pieces to this, just even in Steve's kind of synopsis that he forgets. When, one of those Aryan brothers that he met in Arizona was from Upper Darby, I think you said at one point.
Yeah,
what are the odds of that these two guys meet and had played Little League together? And, the ball kind of has bounced. His brother wasn't wrong when he said he was lucky. The ball has bounced in his direction favorably many times.
You might have played baseball. The guy's name was Martino. I met him at Kingman. He ran the yard. It's crazy. Born in Upper Darby, played baseball, the AA field with it. It's crazy.
That's funny.
So all right, we talked about directing and all these aspects, but with such an intense story, it's a very intense story. The music is crucial. So when it comes to the music, I don't know if we talked about this previously as well, but I don't know if you want to talk about the audio and the soundtrack and whatnot.
Well, I'm kind of old school, and I remember when movies came out and they had soundtracks attached to those movies. And I ran it by Greg. Now I know things are different, these musicians and the music and how they make money. But as long as Greg was cool with it, and we're just shooting it around right now. But I would love to have an exclusive soundtrack for the movie be released at the same time as the movie. We're talking to a couple different, recording artists. I think we definitely need like a real urban feel, gritty, and the music has to, match up with
Philadelphia.
Yeah, Philadelphia. I think Greg agrees.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, I think that would be something special, something that, a lot of movies these days, they haven't done it for years, where you get the guy that's exclusively for the film. I think that would be kind of cool.
All right. Well, Phillygodfather, Greg Lingo, we have the movie coming out. Any possible titles you guys want to talk about?
I don't think we're there yet.
Not there
yet.
We
have a couple of working titles. It is a story of an American dream in a lot of ways. But not to overplay it, I think that this story is about, how do you best the odds all along the way?
The odds.
Yeah. And he came up with a good name. It was Booked. Because when you get locked up, you get booked. You go to sports book, you get booked. Yeah. You're really getting booked your whole entire life, through different types of business you don't even realize. So that's a great name Greg came up with. But yeah, like we're shooting it around. We're trying to figure out the best name. Now, obviously, Phillygodfather sounds great, but I'm not a gangster. I'm not a mobster. I might know a lot of people, but that's not what I am. So that name might be impactful, but it doesn't really tell the true story of my life. Yeah, we're gonna throw some names around, and hopefully we come up with a good name. But I'll tell you guys, to me, I think, and that's why I love being with Greg, because we have the same vision. And if it's not going to be top notch, we're not going to do it. And that's the agreement we have from the door. And this is going to be top notch. And I had read an article when I was a kid, real quick. I used to read the daily newspaper from front to back every day. And I'm at Beverly Hills Middle School, and there was a 7-Eleven around the corner. I used to pick up the paper, and I remember reading an article. It said, it was basically clowning the guys that started Snapple, because at that time they only had juices. They didn't have the iced tea yet. And the guy who wrote the article basically said, who was the genius that came up with this stupid name, Snapple? This company's in bankrupt, about to go out of business. Their juices ain't that good. This whole fucking, but it was mainly about who was the dumbass that came up with that name. So then fast forward like 10, 12 years, my family's in the beverage business. We have our own iced tea company, our own juice company. And I'm reading an article in the Philadelphia Inquirer, and it says, the name Snapple is pure genius. Whoever came up with that name is and I'm thinking, and it hit me, I'm like, oh my God. So as long as the movie's great,
it's what you make it.
It's what you make it, man. And the name's cool and all, but if the movie's fucking intense and it shows all the feelings and all the trials and tribulations I went through, it's gonna be a great fucking movie.
In the book.
And I want the viewer to learn something about the process. I think that's key here, that he's got a lot to share that's really, we talked about the deep and heavy stuff, but this sports betting is fascinating. And I think at the end of this film, you're going to be like, all right, I kind of understand that better.
You learn something.
Totally.
Yeah. So the book, we have the book coming out. You talked about it. You hinted at it. When does the book come out? Or when is the scheduled release?
We're shooting for the first quarter of 2024.
First quarter of 2024. So you heard that here on the Maltepes Show, Q1 of 2024. Look out for the book by the Phillygodfather. Movie coming out soon. We have the book. Anything else you guys want to talk about?
It was funny when Steve was talking about milk. There's some things that take you back to a moment in your childhood, and I didn't realize until I went to college that I was poor. My parents did a pretty good job of, we kind of had what we needed, but milk. Well, my mom had this powdered milk, and it was absolutely fucking disgusting. And to this day, I have struggles with milk, and you never knew if you put enough of the powder in there and you're stirring it with the water. And then it wasn't cold, and she'd throw ice in there, and now it's watered down, and you're trying to pour that over some shitty cereal that wasn't, Honey Smacks that your friends had. It was just
Bubba Smacks.
Yeah, it was exactly. So there is some levity to this story too that is going to come across, and it's going to come across in the book. It's going to come across in the film as well.
That's great to hear. All right, thank you guys so much for coming on the show. I think we're about done. We can wrap it up about here. If you guys have anything else, you can find the Philly Godfather at Philly Godfather on Twitter. Greg, I don't know if you want to talk about...
𝐷𝐴𝐚𝐥𝐭𝐞𝐩𝐿ventures.com is my company, and we have a variety of businesses, primarily home building, real estate development, but also rental properties, and we kind of segued into the entertainment industry the last 10 years.
So check out 𝐷𝐴𝐚𝐥𝐿ventures.com as well. You can find us at Maltepes Report on Twitter and across all social networks. Thank you guys for coming on. It's been a joy talking about the story and what's in store for the future.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you guys very much.
We're coming for everything.
Put that one in. Tagline.